Ryan Jarrell here for MMA News, and it's always a great time having my next guest on the program. It's Juicy J, Julian Erosa, who you can see back in action June the 13th at UFC Denver when he takes on Christian Rodriguez. Julian, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. Thanks for having me on again.
Yes, sir. Always good talking to you, my man. We chatted a little bit here before we went live, but I just want to start with, congratulations, the new addition to the family, your son AJ. He was born, I guess, after we spoke for our last interview, but before your fight. So just tell me what that was like. As how difficult it was for you with balancing all that. I guess leading up to that big fight that you had over Ramos.
Yeah, I'm very good at compartmentalizing things in my head, and so like leading up to having the baby, fight week, fighting a guy like Ricardo Ramos, and there's a lot of big things, kind of coming in concession back to back, and so for me it was like just trying to focus on training, not worrying about the baby coming quite yet until he actually came, and then not worry about the fight week until it was here, and then not worry about the fight until that was here, and so it's kind of trying to do that, but as I was trying to do that, make it not such a big deal. It all kind of flows in, pretty dramatically when you have your baby. You're in the hospital for a few days, um, getting no sleep. My allergies were kicking my butt too. It was like probably the worst my allergies had ever been, and so I was kind of dealing with both that. I was worried, like I thought I was getting sick. Luckily, I wasn't getting sick, so I could be around my baby and then jumped right into fight week. Luckily, my mom was in town to help us out. Um, but you're kind of freestyling it. It's my first baby, so we don't. It's not like we had a bunch of people around us helping us out. My mom was here helping us out, but it was still like we just felt like fish out of water, and then getting right into the fight. But as difficult as it can kind of be when you have something like that happen, it also gave me so much extra motivation because not only just because of having my baby, but seeing what my wife did. I mean, my wife went and had the most incredible and intense thing I've ever seen. She gave birth to our son, and it was probably the hardest thing I've seen her ever have to do. Physically. So it really gave me a lot of motivation, and then it also kind of made in my own mind fighting become a bit smaller and everything be a bit smaller. Like nothing's as big of a deal or everything becomes smaller deals when you see something as miraculous as a baby being born, especially when it's your own. And so it kind of took a little bit of the edge off of the fight. Probably the most comfortable I've ever been walking out to a fight, and so I just knew that once I got into the cage, I just felt like a really sense of calmness around me, and I think it was because of having the baby.
Mhm. Yeah, very well said with all of that. Well, the one thing that stood out because the older that I get, the more vital sleep is to my being productive. And you said you weren't getting any sleep. Did that affect you at all leading up to this fight?
It's as we were talking earlier, like you don't know these things until it happens to you. And one thing I can say to people is like, yes, your sleep is gonna, suffer, but what you realize is you can live off of no sleep and you can do it pretty comfortably. Like I tell people this a lot, like, all I really needed was like 4 hours here, 4 hours there, and I was able to go and I just knew that there was something bigger than just me. Like I had to take care of this kid, and make sure he was fed, make sure he was sleeping, make sure he was getting what he needed, and also for my wife, giving birth is obviously pretty intense for the woman. So they have to, she has to recover, and on top of recovering, she has to take care of her kid as well. So, and being in fight week, so I mean, like I said, my mom was in town, so it helped me get regular sleep. But I was still getting a little less sleep than I normally get. But what I've learned ever since, because he's about 3 months old now, is you can do the same thing on a little less sleep than you're normally used to, and it just works its way out. It's something you get used to. You drink a little more coffee, but you have a bit more. You're a bit more inspired to be up and to do these things, and you have a bit more motivation to get those things done without sleep.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear because it makes me nervous to think about when I have my first child and I'm not sleeping. So I'm gonna remember what you said, Julian. Uh,
Also, also one thing I want to add to that is I'm a bit of a I'm a situational case in the sense of like I really pride myself on my cardio. So I don't know if that has something to do with it too because I do a lot of hard cardio, long distance running, and I'm dragging ass towards the end of the some of the miles that I do. I'm still able to push, and I think just doing something like this and, really extending my cardio like that, I think that might have helped me as well, having less sleep and just kind of pushing through. So I don't want to give your hopes up 100%, but I noticed just, in my everyday life, having less sleep wasn't as big of a deal as people made it out to be.
Okay. Well, cardio is king, so that's for darn sure there. Going into that fight with Ramos, I mean, you're a veteran, Julian. You've been around for a long time. You've got a lot of signature wins. You were a fairly sizable underdog going in against him. And I was seeing a lot of people online, social media, and all that stuff, kind of writing you off, saying, "Oh, Ramos is going to walk through him." Did you have a chip on your shoulder going into that fight?
No, not really. I never really have chips on my shoulders, or have any kind of animosity towards any opponents, especially when it's like other people talking crap to me or talking crap about the fight on the internet, because you can have those keyboard warriors on there. But and nobody that's talking trash is in the gym with me. They're not in the gym with Ramos. They're not. They've never been in a UFC fight most often than not. With most of the guys that are disrespecting us. Um, but I always feel like there's something to prove going out there, because I've lost against guys I probably should have beat, and I've beaten guys that people think I should have lost to. So I'm very inconsistent in that sense. But sometimes I'm able to rise to the occasion, and I always try to do that. But that's one of the hardest things to do, is to really transition what you do in the gym into the cage and be consistent about that. And so, leading into that fight, I mean, it's just me and Ramos. I mean, there's nobody else in there. I don't care if anybody's talking crap about me. I get it every time. Every time I go online, look through any of the comments, it's always like, people talking shit about me getting knocked out by Artem on the fucking Ultimate Fighter from forever ago. So if you don't have thick skin, this is not a good sport for you to be in, especially with the way this whole social media is nowadays. So I just look past it.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, social media. Just don't go on and look if you don't want to
Yeah.
see anything negative. Not a whole lot of tape to dissect here. You got the round one submission, a guillotine over Ramos.
Yeah.
Anything that surprised you in that fight? What were you expecting versus what you got?
That's actually, it was almost exactly everything that we had worked on. He was a bit quick, but that's how he is. He's a dynamic striker. So, and we're not worried, but we were practicing him spinning, because he got a spinning knockout elbow of Danny Chavez, and then and he landed another good one on somebody else in a fight as well. He tends to like to spin a lot. So we worked that. He threw that in the fight, hit me with his like tricep. So that's funny, because right after he did that, I kind of smiled at him, because I knew like that was one of the things we've been working on quite a bit, as one of his like dynamic movements. But he got choked up by Jourdain with a guillotine the fight before, and that's one of my moves. I mean, the Doris, I would say, is probably the top of my moves in jiu-jitsu, but I would say right underneath it is the guillotine, and my transition from the guillotine to the Dars is really well, or I do it really well. And so I knew if he just gave me his neck, if he shot in sloppy, and that's why the first takedown he got on me, he picked me up and put me down. You see me kind of trying to jump a guillotine, because I knew if I just had his, it didn't even matter if the guillotine was going to be good or not. If I just had his head wrapped in the guillotine, I would end up finding the finish. Like, I would be able to adjust, just because I know my guillotine's that good. And so I knew it was just a matter of time if he did shoot, because he kind of shoots a little lazy, and he throws his head kind of deep into a guillotine. So and Jourdain caught him on the same side as my favorite, as the side that I favor as well. So I just that it worked out exactly how I was hoping it would work out. But I was prepared for 15 minutes of a hard fight. I mean, he beat guys like Bill Algeo and looked good in that fight. So I was waiting for him to be able to withstand even kind of the early onslaught. But he did land a right hand on me that was pretty good. It was one thing that we've been working as well. But like I said, it's really hard to transition or translate your abilities in the gym into the cage. And he caught me with that right hand. It's something that we've been working on, but hats off to him for that. But was able to get the sub over him, which is something I had anticipated.
Yeah, and that's what you said to me leading up to the fight. Signature win over a really tough opponent, and you've had a lot of them in your career, and obviously your next fight is always your most important fight. But what's the significance and the importance of this most recent win over Ricardo?
I think it was just one of those things where it's like, you can, to win fights, you feel on such a high, and then when to lose fights, especially once back to back, or when you're losing multiple fights in a row. It's just you can get so low and like not necessarily like depressed. I mean, some people probably do. I don't get depressed. I just feel like, what am I doing wrong? Like I know I'm good in the gym. I know I got the skills to do this. Like you start questioning your abilities. And so for me, just to get back into the win column over a guy like Ricardo Ramos in a way that I knew I kind of predicted a little bit. I knew that if he dove his head in, and it's funny because right before I left to go to the fight, I was at home drinking coffee with my wife, and I told her uh, right before I went out there, I was like, I just hope this guy shoots on me. If he shoots a double leg on me, he's gonna give me his neck. I guarantee you, I'm gonna choke him out. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And she was like, because I mean, obviously my wife being a part of my life for so long, kind of has an idea about some things in fighting. She doesn't train jujitsu or anything, but she knows that I got a good front headlock, and so she was like, she was watching the fight, and she's like, oh, I just hope he shoots on him. And then she's like, once I seen him shoot on you, I knew it was gonna be over. So even she was ahead of the game compared to most watching the fight. So, but yeah, it was just one of those things, just getting back in the win column over a good guy, and just kind of reassuring myself that I do belong in the UFC. I do belong fighting these guys, and I can contend with some of the some of the best guys out there, and I can still contend with some of the top 15. I think. I mean, kind of hovering in that area, and so I'm really looking forward to being able to try to get a couple wins together, and maybe try to test myself again with the top 15.
Yeah, no doubt. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least if that is the case come, the end of this year, especially if you get this win over Christian. We'll talk about that here just in a little bit shortly. I got to ask you this next question. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing my job. But looking back after that fight, you had some post-fight comments about Leah Thomas, and it blew up all over, social media, and everyone had something to say about it. Do you regret saying that, or do you regret saying it the way you did, or like just looking back at it now, like what's your takeaway looking back on it?
I mean, it's just like Sean Strickland says, all the time. He's a bit more blunt and to the point, and he really doesn't give a shit what people think about what he says. But I feel like we're at the point now. It's just like common sense is just out the window. Like and so like just for me to say something like that, which in my mind is common sense. Like if you're somebody, you know, just a normal person, and you're hearing about these guys creeping into the women's spaces and sports, and it's like it just makes no sense, especially for a guy like me in the sport that I'm in. Like if I decided that I wanted to become a woman and the UFC was okay with that, I mean I can't imagine any girl that's gonna go out there and beat me at my weight class. It's just like I mean, it's just two different. It's such a difference. And not to say that they couldn't be me, because I mean, obviously anything can happen in a fight, but it would be a huge disadvantage on their end. Just because I'm a man and they're a woman, like that's just that's how we're built. It's biology, and the most of the people that said anything bad about it are people that don't train, or people that don't train, that just don't do any sports, have never done any sports. They're just people that blue haired people trying to, get on the comment section and just talk a bunch of shit over something they have no idea about. Like, I get, there's this lady who's I think she's a power lifter. But she had messaged me and she had thanked me for, what I had said and what I had done, and was like, congratulating me on my fight. And then, thanking me for, at least bringing a little bit more awareness to, women and women's sports. And it is what it is. Like I don't care if you're gonna talk crap about me. Like I wasn't being disrespectful about it. I would just I felt like the only way I could get kind of attention is if I said something like that in the way I said it. Like I want to encourage Leah Thomas into transition into women's MMA, and then I'll transition, and then me and him can fight. Just to point out the hypocrisies and just how much it doesn't make any sense. Leah Thomas is 6'6", and still has a penis. Like you see pictures of the dude, I mean, I understand that people want to be, politically correct and stuff, but at the same time, we got to be watching out for, for women in their sports, and if it just becomes where men can just become that, then what's going to happen? It's just going to eventually be where all women's sports are just men dressed up as women or identifying as women, and then there's going to be no women's sports. And so, there's a reason why we have separated for so many years, and there's no reason for us to muddy the water in that sense. And I think I seen something recently. It was like a high school shot put thing, and the girls just decided that they were not gonna participate, and they just basically boycotted the competition and let the guy win it. And then it's kind of screwed up because those girls actually ended up getting banned from doing any sports in their county, which was kind of
Yeah.
just didn't make any sense. But I digress. But I mean, it was just what it was I was just saying common sense, and people just have lost their common sense.
Well, for what it's worth, I totally agree with you. I mean, no one really cares about what I think. They wouldn't hear what you have to say. We're doing this interview, but like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We're on the same page. To kind of piggyback off of that topic, I don't know if you heard what Ali Abdelaziz, I'm butchering that, but you know, the big manager, Ali,
Yeah,
what he
I know,
said.
Ali.
Yeah, okay. About Kayla Harrison fighting like Aljo or someone else at 145. He said this very recently, and Aljamain responded to it. Like when you hear that, like what do you hear? Because obviously Kayla is a scary female fighter who potentially is a future UFC champion. But
Yeah.
even that, you know, her fighting one of the top fighters in the male division at 145. When you hear that, what do you think?
Well, I've been in the gym so often for so many years that you see these things, right? Like when guys like when I'm getting ready for a fight, I'm training with other top UFC guys. Obviously, I'm training with lower level pro guys as well, but I'm training with guys that are about my weight, my strength, my ability to get ready for my fights. When you see some of these girls getting ready for the UFC fights, if they're training with boys or guys, they're training with smaller, lower level guys, and and those guys have to go easier on them. I like it's just part of it. It's just biology. Like I said, it's like a dude like if Kayla Harrison came and trained with us and Aljo, I guarantee you, 100%, Aljo takes her down and holds her down. There's no way she's not going to get up. Aljo holds grown men down that are strong, that have a hard, that people have a hard time holding down. I've seen him in the gym training, and it's just like like even I think Masvidal was saying it about a girl that was getting ready for a fight, and the guy that was training with her or sparring with her had to go easy, and he was a low level guy, wouldn't even do well in the UFC, but he was training with a UFC girl at the same they were the same weight, and he was helping her out, and he had to go easy on her because it's two different things. Even the Williams sisters will talk about tennis, saying that men's tennis and women's tennis are two different sports. Same with fighting, same with anything else. I mean, how many times are you watching the UFC on the weekend and you see a girl get a head and arm toss? That never you see it happen all the time. You never see guys get head and arm tossed, and it's because it's two different sports, two different types of of people that are fighting, and so I mean, I don't know what Ali said. I don't know if he said that she could compete with Aljo, or if that she wouldn't compete with him.
No, I think it was the fact that having a tough time matching her with actual females in her division.
Yeah.
So why not match her with a male at 145?
Well, see, that would be a good I mean, it would be very eye opening for a lot of people that aren't in sports. I mean, obviously, if they match that up, I would put my entire life savings, my house, and everything on Aljo to win that fight because I mean, that's just I just feel like it's that much of a lock. But I mean, even I think there was a transgender dude who was a woman at first and then became a dude boxing and got knocked out in like a few seconds. It's like it's just we're built differently, and there's nothing transphobic or homophobic or sexist about saying that. It's just the truth. I mean, guys can't do things that women can do. My wife gave birth to my son. I watched that thing happen, and it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And I don't. I mean, I I can't do that kind of thing. I mean, and it's not even like that physically. I can't have a baby, but the amount of pain and how much time she had to
Yeah.
push him out and like the pressure. I mean everything. So it's like it's one of those things like I don't know if I could have endured that the way she had done it. So there's different things that we can do as men and there's different things that they can do as women, but in these spaces like that's why it's been separate. It's
Yeah.
been separate for so long. But it is what it is. I mean even women cutting weight is completely different. Like guys, if you look at percentages of body mass that guys are cutting to make weights versus girls cutting to make weight, that's there's a big disparity in that as well. So I mean, all across the board, it's completely different and should be treated as such.
Agreed. We'll end that topic right there. Let's transition here to this fight with Christian Rodriguez. First off, just tell me, how camp has been thus far. We still got a little ways before we get to July the
Yeah.
13th. Have you had anyone specifically that's similar to Christian that can kind of mimic him to get you ready?
I mean, I've been, trying to find the, a little shorter guys, because obviously Christian was a 35er and he's 5'7". So one of my buddies, George, I'll call it, he moved with me, to Las Vegas when I moved back, like about almost 7 years ago now. But he's a pro fighter as well. And he's just, he used to be a featherweight, dropped down to 35, uh, big strong 35er, probably stronger than a guy like Rodriguez. Rodriguez doesn't necessarily have that like strength about him. But I've been using George a little bit, and then just kind of picking and choosing some of the guys that are in the gym that are more about his size. Although my buddy George is a bit heavier of a wrestler, so and Rodriguez seems like a bit more of a stand up guy, defend the takedown, get back to the feet. So I've been using some of those guys, but I mean we have so many guys in the gym that are high level that all the rounds you're getting, regardless of if they're the exact style, you're just seeing everything. So it's been working really well. Camp's been great. I've been kind of just already like, I mean, I train every day, really. I mean, I go crazy, especially after having my son. It's like, that's my escape. Going to the gym and training is my escape. I mean, after the Ricardo fight, I sparred the next week, just like Sean Strickland does. He just goes right back into the gym. It's something that kind of keeps my head clear and just gives me my time, my little bit of free time that I have. And that's why we do this. If you don't love to fight, then you probably shouldn't be fighting because it's just too hard to do if you don't love it. So even after I fought Ramos, I didn't even take a week off. I just went back into training. So I've been in camp since then, anyways, really, and feeling good about the fight. I mean, he's a tough competitor, but I think some of his notable wins are a little suspect in the sense of missing weight. He's only made bantamweight one time, so a couple of wins that he has at bantamweight when he missed weight. There's an asterisk by it. He beat Simon, and Raul, and obviously Raul was a big win, but he missed weight by like 5 pounds, and that's huge. That's huge, especially at that weight class. And then I think Raul made some mistakes in that fight as well. He just became desperate with the takedown, but um, uh, and then that Dalgarian fight, his last fight. I mean, come on, I don't know how he wins that fight. I mean, it's a draw at the most. I mean, if you give, I mean, not even a draw. I mean, it was bad. I mean, even rewatching that fight, there was like 3 or 4 people that posted going into the third round that it was 20-17 in their scorecards. Obviously, those aren't the judges, but there was multiple people saying that, and then Rodriguez gets a nod. So I'm not taking anything from him. It's not his fault. It was the judge's fault.
Yeah.
But and obviously Dalgarian kind of gave up at the end of that fight, but it still didn't get finished, and people thought it was a 10-8 the first round and 10-9 the second round. So it's hard to even understand how that happens. But you got guys like Dave Torelli. I think it's Dave Torelli. That's the shitty judge who
Yeah.
made split decision. Just doing a horrible job. And that's like one of the things you just never want to let it go to the judges. But also in the UFC, it's hard to put these guys away. I mean, we're all veterans. We're all really good in our own right, so guys can hold and survive. But yeah, like I said, circling back, he's got a couple good wins, but I think there's asterisks by them because of those circumstantial things.
Yeah, and kind of like to what you just said, I think one of his best, I guess, attributes as a fighter is he's very durable, right? He's taken a
Yes.
lot of damage. He's kind of gotten beat up. You thought maybe he was going to get finished early on in the
Yeah.
fight, but he hangs in there and hangs in there and then kind of turns it on late. You talked
Yeah.
about, obviously you pride yourself on your cardio. Is this just like a picture perfect fight where your cardio is going to shine through, where you're just going to have to stay at it for a full 15 minutes to win a decision? Or do you think that you're going to get him out of there?
I what I've noticed on some of his fights is people like, especially Bulgarian, like kept trying to take him down and take his back and take his back and take his back, and then I think that's kind of what gassed Bulgarian out. But me, I'm a bit more of a front headlock guy. I could see myself catching him in a front headlock choke, but he's got front headlock chokes on his own in his own right. So thing about when you see somebody that's good at getting front head chokes, they're probably good at defending it as well. So I can see him being able to withstand even my jujitsu. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my style too. Like I'm one of the guys that kind of just stays in there. Like if you let me stay in there, I'll be there. You know, you can whoop my ass, you know, for 14 minutes in that 15th minute. If I'm still in there, I still have a chance to win, just like he does. So I think it's gonna be a fun fight. It'll be entertaining in that sense. But he does seem a little bit passive in spots. Uh, Especially kind of on the ground in the grappling against the cage. Um, he kind of just sits there and waits, and he's a bit too patient in some of those situations. So I think using my size and you know if I do get him on the ground, not necessarily trying to rush anything. I don't need it. I can just kind of cook him there. I don't have to jump on a headlock. I don't have to take his back. I can just if I'm in a good spot, just stay there. Like I mean, even Bulgarian had him in like half guard on top. It's like instead of trying to do more and trying to get something out of it, if you can just sit there with some of those guys that are patient, like Rodriguez, you can just burn the clock and you can win a fight like that. And it goes back to I think Bulgarian won that fight, so it's kind of fucked up the way it worked out for him. Uh, just being instead of being so adamant to try to take someone's back or adamant and try to finish somebody, you can just sit there, rest and relax, and still win the round. You know.
Yeah, and so if you were a betting man, Julian, and you're not because you're an active UFC fighter, you can't bet on the fights. But if you were looking at this upcoming matchup, do you think it's more likely that you win a decision, or are you going to get another submission or TKO victory here?
I've always been, you know, I never like going 15 minutes, and not because of any reason besides I'm in there to do a job. I want to get it done as quick as possible and as spectacular as possible. Like obviously I'm ready to go 15 minutes at any given time, but it's always kill or be killed in there. It's the Diaz moniker. I want to go in there and I want to get a finish and just make a statement every time. You know, I've always been one of those guys that you watch, regardless if it's a win, lose or draw. It's always going to be a great fight. I'm going to get a high. I mean, even the last, I'm 6-3 in the UFC since my third stint, and all those fights have been either a highlight for me or a highlight for them. Besides the Grant Dawson fight, that was a little bit boring, but that's just kind of his style. But all the other ones, you know, all the ones that you know, the two that I lost were knockouts, and it's their highlight reels, and then all the other ones I got are you know pretty highlight reels themselves. I mean, Dawodu went decision, but I had some highlights in that fight, and me and Peterson had fight of the night. So like it's I'm always going out there to try to get the finish in spectacular form as quickly as I can. But I'm willing to have a dogfight and drag it out as well. But so back to the question, if I was a betting man, I would bet on either. I mean, I would bet on me submitting him.
Okay. Well, I guess it wouldn't surprise me at all based on your track record. This is going to be in Denver. Denver, the elevation is higher than Vegas. Are you planning on getting out there a little bit early to kind of acclimate?
I mean, maybe not. I know he's from Minnesota or Milwaukee. And I think that's even lower than us. I mean, and not only like in Vegas, we have a bit more elevation. We have a little bit of elevation here as well. But not only that, it's so dry here. It's like like I feel like Vegas is one of the hardest places to acclimate with your cardio. So like, and I fought over in Denver before I fought Devontae Smith, and obviously that fight was really short lived. It was only like a minute or two. But the training I did there before the fight, I didn't feel much of a difference. My cardio is good. When your cardio is good, it's good, you know. And also not only that, I really do think cardio is a huge percentage of cardio is mental because we all train. We're all in good shape. If you don't have the ability to mentally push past, that's when your cardio breaks, you know. And so, if he's coming from, you know, the same kind of situation as me in elevation, and we go to there, we probably both going to be dealing with it. But I think I'm just going to show up the week of the fight and just call it good.
Okay. I like a lot of the guys at Factory X, and that's obviously right there in Colorado. Any chance you would do anything there, you know, the week of the fight, just to maybe get off the last few pounds, or just kind of, you know, shake off whatever you need to before fight night?
I mean, maybe, but I'm gonna have my guys with me, so like, you know, it really doesn't matter. We could be in a freaking bathroom doing pads, and you know, it'll be all good. And honestly, for me, cutting weight, I've kind of got it down to a science to where I don't necessarily need anything specific. I just need my sauna, you know, a couple of those foil blankets, and I can get the weight off perfectly fine. And the UFC treats us so well. They put mats every, you know, they have workout rooms for us, and So we'll be able to use that, and I'll be fine. I think last time I think we might have used that the Factory X gym when I was there last time. But I'm not. We used one of the gyms. We went over there and got a little training in. But yeah, I think I'll be fine.
All right. Well, looking forward to seeing you back in there, my man. Before we get out of here today, I want to ask you a little bit about the 145 division. Right now, the champion Taporia doesn't actually have his next title fight announced. Who do you think we're going to see him against, and what kind of a reign do you think Taporia is going to have?
Yeah, Tavoria's. I mean, obviously, the way he fought Volkanovski looked fantastic. I mean, obviously, I would, I would push for a rematch. I think Volkanovski deserves it. I mean, he's the type of dude that's been stepped up so many times to fight guys out of his weight class for the champ to be a double champ and to, trying to do that legendary status. So I think you kind of got to give Volkanovski a rematch in my opinion. But I like Max Holloway. I think Max Holloway does well against him, and then it'd be nice too because Max Holloway is always known for his boxing, and Topuria obviously is known for his boxing. That's kind of how he finished Volkanovski. So it'd be nice to see those guys really collide with their boxing and see who really does have the best boxing in the UFC. Because I think those guys are really top contenders in that discussion about who has the best boxing. But I think Volkanovski should get the shot, but if he doesn't, give him Max Holloway. That'd be a fun one.
Yeah, I'd love to see either guy step up and fight Taporia. I still can't believe I don't know. Maybe this makes me sound crazy, but I didn't think Holloway was going to do what he did against Gaethje. I thought Gaethje for sure was going to win that fight. What did you think?
I'm on the same page as you, man. I just thought that I mean, obviously MMA math never works, but Holloway lost to Poirier, and back, when Poirier was, filled out 55er, and I just thought 55 just a bit too big for Holloway to deal with, and because Holloway seems like a pretty, tall and rangy guy himself, so having to deal with the guys at the up a weight class could be problematic. I thought for him, and I honestly thought Gaethje had, obviously Gaethje has a chin that you can throw a kitchen sink at and be fine. So I didn't think that. I mean, that shit was absolutely insane. Obviously, that spinning back kick that broke Gaethje's nose in the first round, um, and a couple of those eye pokes, like although you can't necessarily like add it all up and say that that's why Max won, but those are definitely spots in the fight where it caused damage on Gaethje, especially that spinning back kick in the last like few seconds of that first round, which completely broke his nose. So it just shows how tough freaking Gaethje is. But
Yeah.
who knows if he was seeing kind of if he was blurry for some of those rounds. And just kind of get his his footing and his range right because of that injury early on. So but yeah, hats off to Holloway. I mean, that shit is absolutely insane. You don't need to he didn't need to step in there for the last 10 seconds and have a brawl. He could have danced around with his hands up and, won the fight. And, but he went and he did that. And that was so incredible. One of those moments in the UFC that you'll never forget.
Iconic. It was unbelievable. Let me ask you this. Give me a name or two in the featherweight division right now that isn't in the title picture mix, but you feel like could be a future champion one day.
Dang, in the featherweight division? I don't know. Some people were talking about Sean Woodson possibly and the only reason why I say that is because I'm his only loss still. So if he was a champ, then it'd be nice to have the only win over a champ. But I mean, he's not necessarily the best candidate for that question. Um, shoot, I don't know. I mean, I would have said Josh Emmett, but Josh Emmett. I mean, I would have said that about Josh Emmett like maybe like a year ago or like a year and a half ago. But he's kind of fallen off a little bit. He's getting a little older, and same with Calvin Cater. But I mean, after his last fight with Aljo, like obviously he's missing a piece of his MMA game. So man, I don't even know. I mean, maybe just Holloway to get it back. Oh,
Isn't
I not ranked, not ranked. Shoot, I don't even know. That's a
what
tough one for me.
isn't Diego Lopez? Isn't he a 145er?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you're right. I don't have I don't have like if I had a list of the names then
Yeah.
it might be easy. But yeah, no, he's definitely one of those guys that kind of came out of nowhere and has just kind of killed in the last few fights. Three fights?
Yeah.
Is he had three fights, three bonuses, starching
Scary.
everybody. Yeah, scary dude. He's good, man. I've trained with him a couple times and very nice guy. I like the guy and he obviously has the chops for it, and he could, next fight could be a top 10, and then if he does what he's been doing, could be a top 5, and then it could be a championship fight.
Looking forward to see what happens next for that young man. Last thing
Yeah,
for me, Julian, does Connor Chandler come to fruition? Does it happen on June 29th? And if so, what's your prediction?
man, I have no idea. Obviously, with all the drama that's kind of going on social media, but I think if the fight does happen, uh, I think Poirier said it pretty good that if Connor is how he was before his leg was broken, Connor gets the win. Just because Chandler's a bit uh, uh, too obvious. Like he kind of throws big punches, and um, Connor's more of a sniper from the outside. So if Connor has um, any look from how he used to be, then I think he gets the win. If it does happen, I mean, maybe not even happen.
Hopefully it does happen because that's my birthday. So I'd really like to be able to watch that main event fight, but we'll see. Julian, always great talking to you, buddy. Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug? Anyone you want to thank? Floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Obviously, my management, all my fans out there, uh, Iridium Sports Agency. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be here. I say that every time just because it's true. Obviously, all my family and friends that support me as well. My wife and my son AJ. And obviously you, Ryan, for having me on.